Welcome to NTD News Today. Here are today's top stories. Border czar Tom Homan says a number of immigration enforcement officers in Minnesota will come home. That's with cooperation from state officials. More on what he said on the tensions in the city. New videos emerged showing Alex Pretti, the man shot by immigration agents in Minneapolis, aggressively confronting federal agents more than a week before his death. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz says he will never again run for office. Senator Amy Klobuchar announcing she's running to take his place. A car rams into a Jewish center in New York as people inside were gathered for prayer. Police are investigating as a hate crime.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Today is Thursday, January 29th. I'm Paul Graney. It's great to have you here. Border czar Tom Homan spoke today about immigration operations in Minneapolis. He says city and state officials have agreed to honor ICE detainers in prisons. He added that that would allow for a drawdown of federal agents. Homan also addressed border security and the stress that ICE agents are facing.
Under the President's leadership, we have the most secure border in the history of this nation, which means less women are being raped, less children are dying crossing that border, less fentanyl is getting in this country to kill Americans. More agents in the jail means less agents in the street. This is common sense cooperation that allows us to draw down on the number of people we have here. Yes, I said it. Draw down the number of people here. Because we have the efficiency and safety of the jails. Day after day, you can't eat in restaurants. Day after day, having people spit on you and blow whistles at you. Day after day, having all these threats at you. Day after day, having people trying to interfere with you. Day after day, they're human.
Homan said those unhappy with immigration enforcement should take their concerns to Washington. That's where immigration laws are written, he says. The border czar acknowledged that federal operations aren't perfect, and he said the Trump administration has recognized that improvements can and should be made. He said he met with ICE as well as state and local officials to convey the president's expectations for enforcement. Homan emphasized that ICE is conducting targeted operations, saying officers know exactly who they're looking for.
We will conduct targeted enforcement operations. Targeted. What we've done for decades. When we hit the streets, we know exactly who we're looking for. Good idea where we may find them. That's traditionally been the case, and that's where we're going. That's what we're going to continue to do and improve upon that. ICE and CBP officers are performing their duties in a challenging environment under tremendous circumstances, but they're trying to do it with professionalism. If they don't, they'll be dealt with. Like any other federal agency, we have standards of conduct.
Homan said he had a good meeting with Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. The border czar said Ellison clarified that county jails may notify ICE of release dates for criminal illegal immigrants so that they can be safely taken into custody. Homan also called on state and local officials to stand shoulder to shoulder with federal agents to tone down the dangerous rhetoric.
We got to stop the rhetoric, the hateful rhetoric that has caused an increase in assaults. That has caused, because of that, having to send security teams out with arrest teams, which surge the city with additional resources because of the rhetoric, because of the threats, because of the assaults. I begged for the last 2 months on TV for the rhetoric to stop. I said in March, if the rhetoric didn't stop, there was going to be bloodshed. And there has been. I wish I wasn't right. Prioritization are going to be criminal aliens, public safety threats, and national security threats. The organization and the funding of the attacks on ICE. I'm not going to answer a lot about that because I'm not going to show our hand, but they'll be held accountable. Justice is coming.
Homan also warned that weak border enforcement sends a message encouraging illegal immigration, more deaths, trafficking, and a strain on Border Patrol resources. Homan also addressed protesters. He said he supports First Amendment rights and appealed to those voicing concerns to keep it peaceful. He also said there will be zero tolerance for threats against law enforcement officers, assaults on agents, and interference with enforcement operations. We're also learning more about the man who was recently shot by federal agents in Minneapolis. New videos emerging which show Alex Pretti aggressively confronting ICE agents more than a week before his death. The video captured by the News Movement shows Pretti spitting at federal agents' vehicles, and as it pulls away, Pretti kicks the SUV's taillight twice, breaking it. The incident happened on January 13th, 11 days before he was fatally shot by Border Patrol officers. A lawyer for the family has verified the person in the video is in fact Alex Pretti. The video shows several agents tackling him and bringing him to the ground before he's let go. When he turns his back to the camera, what appears to be a handgun is visible in his waistband. It's unclear whether the agents saw it. Pretti was fatally shot last week during a separate confrontation, and immediately after the incident, several officials said Pretti brandished a firearm during a protest, was carrying the gun when he confronted the agents. Customs and Border Patrol says it has put the two agents involved on administrative leave, calling it standard protocol. And a Somali-American woman has been arrested in Minneapolis. 23-year-old Nazra Ahmed was among 16 people taken into custody, accused of either assaulting or impeding federal law enforcement during a riot. Ahmed went viral earlier this month after a news conference where she compared Somali-American identity to a mix she called bananas and rice. Attorney General Pam Bondi said she's in Minneapolis as federal authorities step up enforcement following recent unrest, warning that more arrests are expected. Bondi says the government won't tolerate lawlessness in the city. The arrests come amid heightened tensions after the shooting of Alex Pretti during an ICE operation. Federal officials say protecting agents has become a top priority as protests continue. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey is traveling to Washington, D.C. today. He'll attend the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Frey says Minneapolis has seen one of the largest federal immigration deployments, but he says it must not spread to other cities, so he'll take part in talks on how cities can work together to keep communities safe. That's while Minnesota Governor Tim Walz said in an interview today that he would never again run for office. Walz is currently serving his second term as governor of Minnesota. He was first elected in 2018 after serving 6 terms in the U.S. House. The Trump administration has recently singled out Walz and Minnesota over allegations of massive fraud in the state. And that's while Senator Amy Klobuchar said today she's running for governor of Minnesota. In her campaign announcement, the Senate Democrat vowed to challenge President Trump and his administration's immigration enforcement efforts. She also said that Minnesota has been through a lot. In a video posted on X, Klobuchar pointed to this month's fatal shootings in the city, the assassination of a state legislature, and a school shooting. Klobuchar did not address the ongoing investigations into widespread fraud in her state, though. Several Republicans are running for the GOP nomination, including MyPillow founder Mike Lindell and Minnesota House Speaker Lisa DeMuth. And Senator Susan Collins says that enhanced ICE operations in Maine have ended. The move comes just a week after federal officials launched what was called Operation Catch of the Day. In an early morning statement, Maine's senior senator said the decision followed several conversations with Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Collins says the DHS does not confirm enforcement activity, but commented that there are currently no ongoing or planned large-scale ICE operations in the state. The intensified effort was aimed at targeting what officials described as the worst of the worst. It led to more than 200 arrests. Collins said ICE and Border Patrol will continue normal operations in Maine. And still to come, the FBI searching a Georgia elections office tied to the 2020 election as the Justice Department presses for ballot records. And more freezing weather in store for the eastern U.S. Forecasters predict this cold snap could be the longest in decades. We have more after the break. Welcome back. I'm Paul Graney. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer kicked off his first ever visit to communist China yesterday. alongside an entourage of business leaders. It comes as concerns mount over the Chinese Communist Party's espionage activities and its repression of human rights. NTD Sam Wong has the details.
They say that 8 days is a long time in politics. Try 8 years.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer arrived in Beijing on Wednesday for a 3-day state visit. He's the first UK Prime Minister to go to China since Theresa May in 2018. The communist regime is considered a major trading partner for the United Kingdom, but that relationship soured in recent years due to concern about espionage, Beijing's support for Russia in its war with Ukraine, and the regime's repression of pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong. Traveling with a delegation of business leaders, Starmer is slated to visit Shanghai and meet with Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping.
Of course, we will have to manage our differences, but that's what you do with a mature, consistent, comprehensive and strategic approach to China. We manage our differences, we take our opportunities, and we constantly think, how does this deliver for people back at home?
Aside from building ties with China, Starmer is coming under pressure to help secure the release of British citizen Jimmy Lai, a former media tycoon and one of Hong Kong's most prominent pro-democracy figures. Lai was arrested in 2020 by CCP authorities and is facing a potential sentence of life in prison.
It is outrageous that any British Prime Minister should go to Beijing whilst a British citizen is incarcerated, languishing along with many pro-democracy campaigners in jails in Hong Kong and in mainland China.
And just shortly before Starmer's China visit, the UK government approved a new supersized Chinese embassy in central London. That's despite pressure from lawmakers over national security concerns. The decision drew protest, with critics warning the embassy could be used as a CCP outpost to intimidate and spy on Chinese dissidents in exile.
This site will accommodate hundreds more Chinese state employees. We know what that means. More interference, more influence operations, and more intimidations of people like me.
Meanwhile, a recent report by The Telegraph says a Chinese spying operation has been hacking the phones of senior UK officials for years. Ahead of Starmer's visit, more than a dozen organizations issued a joint letter urging the Prime Minister to raise the issue of forced organ harvesting. It's a crime committed by the CCP against prisoners of conscience, including groups like Falun Gong practitioners and the Uyghur ethnic minority. When asked whether he would raise human rights issues with Beijing, Starmer did not go into specifics, but said that he would, quote, raise the issues that need to be raised. Sam Wong, NTD News.
And meanwhile, while Starmer is in China, back in the UK, suspected Chinese agents have threatened to shoot the Prime Minister if performances of Shen performing arts go ahead. Now, the UK's Metro media outlet reporting today that Shen received threatening emails during the company's tour in the UK, which is ongoing. One email reads, "Cancel the Shen performance, or British Prime Minister Keir Starmer will be shot from a distance." Another reads, "If you insist on having Shen perform, you will experience a surprise terrorist attack, and I'm not joking with you," unquote. Shen Performing Arts is based in New York. Its mission is to revive traditional Chinese culture from a time before communism. The show also exposes the CCP's ongoing persecution of the Falun Gong spiritual group. Over the past 2 years, the company has received more than 160 death threats and bomb threats believed to be from Chinese Communist Party agents. According to Shen website, the Chinese regime has been trying to sabotage performances around the world ever since the company was founded in 2006. But despite the threats, no actual incidents have ever occurred, and no show was cancelled. And joining us now is a gentleman who received a similar death threat this week. It warns that he and his family will soon be reunited with their God. The message includes a photo of shotgun shells. Ben Maloney is a volunteer with the Falun Dafa Information Center. It's a U.S.-based group that's been warning Americans about just how dangerous the Chinese Communist Party is. Ben, thanks so much for coming on this morning. I know you have a young family. I'm sure this threat came as a shock to you all. Why were you targeted specifically?
Well, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, this is a really important issue. I think it's a really scary time to be considered a critic of the Chinese Communist Party, because what we're seeing happening, and certainly I'm a victim of this, is the fact that if you're considered a critic of the Chinese Communist Party here in America or in other Western countries, they're launching a full-on violent intimidation campaign and smear campaign to try to silence people. And for myself, I've been a volunteer and a voice for the voiceless of people that are brutally persecuted in China for almost 2 decades. And that's something that I felt called to do as someone that has a shared faith of Falun Gong, a Buddhist-based spiritual practice that's persecuted in China. And due to the fact that I'm vocal, due to the fact that I come on shows like this and speak about the Chinese Communist Party's atrocities and their crimes against humanity, I've now been targeted and threatened with death threats.
So you are a Falun Dafa practitioner, Ben. You're speaking out for these people who are brutally persecuted in China, and you're getting these death threats, not just you, the other people as part of your group as well, which is shocking. Ben, you alluded to it. It's not the only incident. The Chinese Communist Party is attacking the Falun Gong community here in America in all types of different ways. Why is this happening now?
What's happening is we have some evidence on our site, and in 2022, there was a secret meeting with Xi Jinping, who of course is the highest ranking member in the Chinese Communist Party, and he basically said to the effect that the persecution of Falun Gong outside of China to silence Falun Gong has not been creative enough, and he ordered a two-pronged approach of legal warfare and public opinion warfare. And since then, what we've seen is other documents from state security forces amplifying this. And what we've seen is a brutal attack in terms of intimidation campaigns. To your point, there's been over 200 in the past year against Falun Gong related entities that have threatened, kidnapping children, to shoot, to have bomb threats against Shenyang Performing Arts. But we're also seeing, in conjunction with mass intimidation and violent threats, smear campaigns in the West to try to damage Falun Gong's reputation, or even through Western media outlets, say a bunch of untrue things. And the reason that the Chinese Communist Party is doing this now is because their crimes against humanity are being exposed on a wide scale. And for the past 20 years, it's been growing and pretty much common knowledge now, their crimes against humanity, which should end in Nuremberg-like trials for them. And I think what's happening is the true face of the Chinese Communist Party is being exposed, and sort of like a cornered animal, they're doing an all-out blitz to try to discredit or silence critics that are exposing these crimes against humanity.
And I feel your group, Ben, has done a very thorough job of tying everything. I read a report, there was lawfare, there's manipulation of media, there's all types of ways that the Communist Party is using to defame Shenyang and Falun Gong. It's just incredible. But Ben, this is a violent regime. Now it's directly threatening you and your family. You're just a volunteer. You don't really need to do this. Why do you do it?
It's a good point. I never saw myself getting involved in this work. I have a job in big tech. I have 2 very young kids. I have a house. I'm a pretty normal guy. And I felt kind of called to do this. I've benefited a lot from my faith. And when I heard and learned, 20 years ago that people that share this faith with me were being, brutally tortured and murdered, I felt kind of a calling to use these rights as Americans that we have, freedom of belief, freedom of speech, to speak out for them. And, I grew up Jewish, and we say never again. And when I learned this was happening, I felt kind of compelled. But to be honest with you, I've never felt what they feel in China until this death threat, where it's starting to feel very, very real here, that these threats are actually reaching American soil. And I think a little bit about one of my friends, Chen Gang, who I was actually texting with this morning about something else. And he came out of China. And his story is that, like tens and tens of millions of people in China in the 1990s, he practiced Falun Gong. And when the Chinese Communist Party decided to persecute Falun Gong, they had a mandate from the then top leader, which was to defame their reputations, to bankrupt them financially, and destroy them physically. And he was caught up in that. And so he was thrown into a labor camp. And his testimony is actually on our website, and it's on our YouTube. And he recounts being tortured for his faith. And his story is that he was in the labor camp. They brought him and they handcuffed him to a bed. And they used electric batons, the kind that they use industrially on cattle. And they tortured him for over an hour, and they burned his flesh. And he said it was like a hammer hitting his head as they zapped him. And as they zapped him over and over, and he was on the verge of passing out, they kept asking him, do you want to continue, or do you want to give up your faith? And that is the Chinese Communist Party. That is, in essence, what the Chinese Communist Party is: an evil, totalitarian regime that seeks to control everything about everything everyone believes and thinks and speaks of. And so, sure, I could stay in my house, I could practice my meditation, and I could not speak about these things anymore. But then, what country am I living in? I mean, I live in the United States, and so, yeah, I had to talk with my wife, and we had to really seriously consider this because these are really serious threats. But I mean, how can I look at my children and say, hey, you know, this is happening, and I chose not to speak out? So personally, I say no. I say I won't be intimidated. And I think it's so important now more than ever that we preserve our freedom of speech, our freedom of beliefs, and we speak out, because the Chinese Communist Party is coming for these beliefs, and they are coming to silence us and to try to intimidate us and smear us so that people don't stand up. And I think I'm not going to let that happen.
Ben, as you describe what happened to Mr. Chen Gong, I got goosebumps. It's just shocking to think that something like this could happen. Ben, finally, you mentioned Shenyun Performing Arts. We heard Mr. Keir Starmer was just threatened in the United Kingdom, saying if you let Shenyun perform in the UK, you will be shot from a distance. This is a leader of the United Kingdom. For Shenyun, we see the billboards, the posters for the show everywhere. How exactly does that fit into this story?
Yeah, well, actually, my friend Chen Gong, after he escaped China, he was one of the early members of Shenyun. And so what Shenyun is a performing arts company that uses dance and music to try to revive China before communism. As part of that performance, obviously, is founded by Falun Gong practitioners who came out of China. People like Chen Gong had been tortured or experienced very brutal things, and wanted to let the world know that this was happening in China, because it really wasn't being covered by Western media outlets. And like, you know, in the Renaissance period, using art to inspire people about the beauty of, you know, the real Chinese culture, which includes spiritual practices, and expose these crimes against humanity. Shenyun's been incredibly successful, you know, over the past 20 years in exposing what true Chinese culture is and the crimes against Falun Gong. And as a result of that, obviously, they're considered a critic of the Chinese Communist Party and have been, you know, target number one for the Chinese Communist Party in these smear campaigns in trying to discredit Shenyun or threaten Shenyun, you know, with bomb threats. And they've splashed tires. They've tried to, you know, intimidate dancers. And so, you know, they play a large role in kind of showing who the Chinese Communist Party truly is. And anyone that does that in today's day and age. And I'd like to make the broader point that this isn't just about Falun Gong or Shenyun. It's about anybody that's considered a critic of the Chinese Communist Party. So sure, it's playing out against myself and my family and people that I know today. But what about tomorrow when you stand up against the Chinese Communist Party? To your point, the UK Prime Minister being threatened, they will threaten anyone, and they will do anything to try to silence critics, to bend the world to the totalitarian viewpoint of the Chinese Communist Party.
I know in a recent video you did on YouTube, Ben, you said this is perhaps the CCP's blueprint for targeting anybody who they want to take down here in America. It's just shocking. Ben Maloney at the Falun Dafa Information Center. Ben, take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
And a partial government shutdown looms on Capitol Hill, you'll be glad to hear. Democrats have laid out demands to change immigration enforcement to avert another shutdown. But some Republicans are open to holding off on ICE funding, while others warn against it. NTD's Melina Weiskup has more.
Senate Democrats once again making demands of Republicans to avert a second partial government shutdown. Funding for 6 federal agencies runs out tomorrow. This time, Democrats are demanding changes to how ICE conducts immigration enforcement.
First, we want to end roving patrols. We need to tighten the rules governing the use of warrants and require ICE's coordination with state and local law enforcement.
They also want to hold federal agents to the same use of force policies that apply to state and local law enforcement. And they want to force immigration agents to wear body cameras and to remove masks. Democrats are calling on Republicans to separate DHS funding from the broader spending package to make the changes. These demands so far rejected by Republican leadership, though party leaders indicate negotiations are possible.
So we're anxious to hear what their demands are, what their requests are, what their asks are. I think the administration is willing to sit down with them and have a discussion, perhaps a negotiation about how do we move forward. But the one thing I do know, and that is that a government shutdown is not in anybody's interest.
Food and intends to hold a vote on the entire package as is, the first vote scheduled for later this morning. If the package fails to get the 60 votes needed due to lack of Democrat support, Thune has not closed the door on taking out DHS funding for now. But this could spell trouble in the House.
If the bill changes much from what the House already passed, then you've got another steep hill to climb over there. All of this just drags things out and delays us funding the government.
A group of House Republicans from the conservative House Freedom Caucus already warned that if senators remove DHS funds, they will not approve the final package, insisting they are, quote, not going to let Chuck Schumer defund Homeland Security to protect criminal illegal aliens. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
And a federal appeals court says that ending temporary protected status for Haitians and Venezuelans in the United States was illegal. It says Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem exceeded her authority with determinations. The appellate panel says she tried to override the power of Congress. The ruling upholds a lower court decision. Noem argues that conditions have improved in the two countries, so their TPS designations are no longer necessary. Haitians got temporary protected status after a catastrophic earthquake in 2010. The U.S. gave Venezuelans TPS due to the economic and political crisis in that country. We'll keep you updated. New York police have launched a hate crime investigation after a disturbing car ramming incident overnight. A man was arrested after repeatedly crashing his vehicle into a deeply revered Hasidic Jewish site. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more.
Videos shared online show a car repeatedly reversing and then smashing headfirst into the Chabad Lubavitch World Headquarters in New York City last night. The frightening incident happened while people were gathered for prayer. It comes at a time of heightened concern within Jewish communities worldwide, following last month's deadly Bondi attack in Australia, where 15 people were killed during a Hanukkah celebration. Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch said the bomb squad responded and conducted a full sweep of the vehicle. No explosive devices were found.
This incident is currently being investigated as a hate crime by the NYPD's Hate Crimes Task Force.
New York City's Mayor Zohran Mamdani said he stands in solidarity with the Crown Heights Jewish community.
I am relieved that no one was injured in this horrifying incident. This is deeply alarming, especially given the deep meaning and the history of the institution to so many in New York and around the world.
Mamdani said any threat to a Jewish institution or place of worship must be taken seriously.
Anti-Semitism has no place in our city, and violence or intimidation against Jewish New Yorkers is unacceptable.
Attorney General Letitia James said it was a blessing no one was hurt.
I'm a former city council member who has represented this community in the past, and I know this community very closely and deeply. They are part of my family.
Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights Harmeet Dillon said she has instructed criminal prosecutors to open a civil rights investigation into the attack. Police say the vehicle involved had New Jersey license plates. The driver eventually exited the car wearing shorts, shouting to bystanders that it slipped, and told officers he was trying to park. A Chabad Lubavitch spokesperson said some of the doors were damaged in the crash. The Chabad Lubavitch headquarters and synagogue in Brooklyn's Crown Heights neighborhood has thousands of visitors annually. Its Gothic revival facade is very recognizable to adherents of the Chabad movement and has inspired dozens of replicas across the world. The word Chabad is an acronym for three Hebrew words, Chokhmah, wisdom, Bina, understanding, and Da'at, knowledge, according to Chabad.org. The Jewish religious system is focused on deep faith in the Torah. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And now put on your coat because we're moving on to the weather. The cold isn't expected to let up anytime soon, sorry. The National Weather Service is warning of dangerously cold temperatures across the eastern U.S. starting tonight. The extreme cold snap is expected to be one of the longest in decades. The bitter cold is predicted to extend into next week with a fresh surge of frigid air. Forecasters warn daily minimums could be broken across the region. Weather models showing a low-pressure system off the Carolinas could develop into a bomb cyclone this weekend, with parts of the southeast could start accumulating snow this Saturday. Get your blowers ready. Further inland in Mississippi and Tennessee, the situation is growing more dire after days of icy weather and power outages. Many of these areas are not equipped for this kind of cold, you know. Dispatchers are fielding calls for medication and oxygen, while troopers are conducting welfare checks on people who haven't been heard from in days. Stay safe. And the FBI has executed a search warrant yesterday at a Fulton County elections office outside Atlanta. The search comes amid ongoing scrutiny of Fulton County's handling of the 2020 presidential election. President Trump has long argued that election improprieties in Georgia contributed to his loss in the state. Last month, the Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against Fulton County seeking access to voting records from the election. County officials had previously said records were under seal, could not be released without a court order. The lawsuit stems from a July resolution passed by Georgia's state election board, which called on the state attorney general to ensure compliance with voting transparency requirements. And now, good news for gold bugs. Gold advancing to a new record high today, nearing the $5,600 an ounce level. Silver also benefiting from the flight to safety, leaping above the $120 level. Here's an update.
Gold extended its record-breaking rally on Thursday, blasting past $5,500 per ounce. That is, as investors sought safety amid geopolitical and economic strains. The precious metal jumped over 2% by midday in Asia and is up around 27% just this year. Prices broke the $5,000 mark for the first time on Monday and have continued to zoom higher. This is driven by a cocktail of factors, including strong safe haven demand and firm central bank buying. Since gold is priced in dollars, the weaker greenback also makes it cheaper for buyers holding other currencies. Analysts from OCBC said that, quote, rising government debt burdens, geopolitical concerns, and policy unpredictability have accelerated a structural re-rating of gold's role in portfolios. Silver also notched an all-time high Thursday, coming within a whisker of breaching the $120 mark. Prices have been helped by demand from investors looking for cheaper alternatives to gold, along with supply shortages and momentum buying. The white metal has jumped more than 60% so far this year.
President Trump has chosen a head for the Justice Department's new dedicated fraud enforcement division. The president yesterday nominated Colin McDonald as the division's first assistant attorney general. In a Truth Social post yesterday, Trump said McDonald is a tough, smart, and highly respected America First federal prosecutor. McDonald has worked as an associate deputy attorney general since last year. Before that, he worked under Deputy AG Todd Blanche. In a post on X yesterday, Blanche called McDonald a rock star who was instrumental in helping make America safe again. Earlier this month, Trump said the newly created division was created to combat pervasive problems of fraud by enforcing federal law against fraud schemes across the nation. The division will enforce criminal and civil laws against fraud targeting federal government programs, federally funded benefits, businesses, nonprofits, and private citizens nationwide. Its creation comes as the Department of Justice uncovered alleged fraud schemes in Minnesota worth billions of dollars. And now the administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Dr. Mehmet Oz, says Los Angeles is at the center of billions of dollars in hospice and home care fraud. His statement drawing a sharp response from California Governor Gavin Newsom. NTD's Arlene Richards has more.
So you can see these are medical buildings.
The administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Dr. Mehmet Oz, said in a video on Tuesday that Los Angeles County is what he called an epicenter for healthcare fraud in America. Oz attributes the fraud to the Russian and Armenian mafia, who he said seemed to have taken over the system.
In this 4-block area in Los Angeles, there are 42 hospices. So either there are a lot of people dying here, or you've got a fraudulent activity that is so good that everyone wants to get in on it.
This is sort of an organized crime, mafia deal where you've got folks who have systematically recruited doctors to write false prescriptions.
Governor Gavin Newsom's office hit back Tuesday saying, quote, amazing to watch Dr. Oz play as a fraud fighter for an effort the state launched years ago. The video comes 3 weeks after Oz and the Justice Department announced a federal investigation into medical fraud in California.
The U.S. Attorney, the FBI, everyone's now focused on the fact that in this state, which has about $30 billion worth of home and community-based services, most of it might be fraudulent.
Meanwhile, Newsom's office has said that he signed legislation in October 2021 to curb medical fraud and abuse, particularly in the hospice industry, which came after a Los Angeles Times investigation reported what it called widespread fraud and abuse in the California hospice industry. Oz said President Trump is not going to tolerate fraud in California anymore.
Unfortunately, in California, there has not been a lot of attention on these problems. That's going to change.
Arlene Richards, NTD News.
And 1 year after the devastating Palisades fire, lawmakers now demanding accountability. A Senate investigation now examining leadership decisions, water failures, and whether warning signs were missed. NTD's Christina Corona has more from yesterday's Senate hearing.
It's been more than a year since the Palisades fire devastated parts of Southern California, and lawmakers are demanding answers. A Senate committee is investigating what went wrong. In November, Senator Rick Scott toured the burn zone and described the destruction.
I went down to see the Palisades, and I was just shocked. I mean, there was just block after block, there was nothing. There was burnt out homes, and there was nothing happening. When the fire broke out, fire hydrants were dry. How in God's green earth could that happen? Right? It wasn't firefighters who did that. The reservoirs were empty. The mayor was missing in action.
Fire officials testified the Palisades fire may have been preventable.
The fire that began on January 1st, known as the Lockman Fire, was never fully extinguished. It became a holdover fire, a well-known and predictable hazard.
Another major focus was water infrastructure. Testimony revealed at least one key reservoir sat empty for 11 months.
Again, who missed it? Again.
And now President Trump is holding a cabinet meeting at the White House with members of his administration. Let's tune in.
First cabinet after the year, so we're starting our second year. Tremendous progress has been made. I want to thank my entire cabinet for 12 months of unprecedented achievements. We really have. I mean, it's unprecedented. The numbers we've had on the economy and growth, you see them. And that's despite a Democrat shutdown. Without the shutdown, we would have picked up about 1.5 points more than already high numbers, record-setting numbers. So this has been, I think, and a lot of people say it, the most successful year of any administration in American history. First year, there's never been a first year like this, including the fact that we extinguished 8 wars, and another one we think is coming. Steve Witkoff's working very hard, and Jared and everybody else, and I think it's coming. It was just announced that the murder rate in our country is the biggest drop ever recorded. It's at the lowest level in 125 years. First in recorded history, it's the lowest in at least 125 years. That's a wonderful thing. And that crime is way down, and one of the reasons was we've taken a lot of bad people and gotten them out of our country. In some cases, they're so bad that we put them in prison because we don't want them to even take a chance of coming back in, even though our border is very secure, record-setting secure. We had 0 illegal aliens being admitted into our country for the last 8 months. That's hard for even me to believe, but the people that make up the lists are supposedly nonpartisan, but I would say they lean toward the Democrat side. And if they say that, I'm all for it. As you know, we've had a situation take place with respect to Venezuela. I want to just thank General Kane and his staff. The job that they've done is incredible. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. And once it did take place, I want to thank the leadership of Venezuela. We're getting along really well with them. The relationships have been very strong, very good. And they have informed me that they feel there's very good security, very strong security. We're working with the various people involved, including Chris and Doug and everybody on the oil. We have the major oil companies going to Venezuela now, scouting it out and picking their locations. And They'll be bringing back tremendous wealth for Venezuela and for the United States, and the oil companies will do fine too. Venezuela will actually make for themselves more money than they've ever made before, and that's a good thing. And the people of Venezuela were literally in the streets waving American flags. They were so happy. And the people in our country, like in the Doral section of Miami, which is considered Little Venezuela, they're thrilled. And I just spoke to the president of Venezuela, informed her that we're going to be opening up all commercial airspace over Venezuela. American citizens will be very shortly able to go to Venezuela, and they'll be safe there. They'll be safe. It's under very strong control. And the people of formerly of Venezuela, some want to go back and some want to go back to visit, and they're going to be able to do that. So I've instructed Sean Duffy and everybody else concerned, including the military, that if you would, by the end of today, I'd like you to have the airspace over Venezuela. Planes can go to Venezuela opened up. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank all of the people in Venezuela for what they went through, and I want to thank the leadership for really they're doing a good job. And just as I promised, we've defeated the Biden inflation nightmare and achieved explosive new economic growth. The Atlanta Fed is predicting an astounding 5.4% GDP growth in the fourth quarter, and that's despite the fact that we had a Democrat shutdown. We would have had, that number would have been 7%, which is a number nobody's ever heard of. And we've been given great national security because of tariffs, and we've also been given unprecedented income because of tariffs. Part of the income that we gave, $12 billion, we gave to the farmers of our country. So that yesterday was up in Iowa, and they were very happy, Madam Secretary.
Yes, sir.
They were very, very happy. They were great. So the GDP growth in the fourth quarter was great. And it's going to be, I think we're going to have an amazing and incredible year. Hopefully we won't have a shutdown. We're working on that right now. I think we're getting close. The Democrats, I don't believe, want to see it either. So we'll work in a very bipartisan way. I believe not to have a shutdown. We don't want a shutdown. And just yesterday, the S&P 500 hit 7,000 for the first time ever. There's never been any time at which it's done like that. And the other stocks also, I think it was 52 times for the Dow, had hit a record high. But the 7,000 was not a number that was even thinkable if you go back a year ago. So S&P hit 7,000 for the first time ever. The stock market has set, it's actually 53 all-time record highs since the election, adding $9 trillion in value to savings, retirement accounts, and 401ks. And I mean, everybody benefits, but we have record stock markets. Companies have never done well. And most importantly, if you think about it, after 4 years in which Biden got much less than $1 trillion of investment into our country, actually it was taken over 11 months, even though we're 12 months. In 11 months, we've taken in more than $18 trillion. So they did less than $1 trillion, Scott, in a period of 4 years, and we've done $18 trillion in less than 1 year. So there's never been anything like that. No other country has done those numbers, by the way, in history. 10 years ago, one country did $3 trillion. No other. We did $18 trillion. Is being invested now. Thousands of businesses, plants, equipment all over the country are being built right now. And they're going to be opening pretty soon. And when they open, you'll see numbers like nobody's ever seen before. The economy is doing amazingly well. I wish the press would report it, but people are finding out. They're seeing it. It's coming. It's becoming pretty evident. It's hard to hide. Biden inflation, which is really stagflation, cost the typical family $34,000. Think of that, $34,000. But after 1 year, growth in real incomes is outpacing inflation by more than $3,000 under Trump. So one cost $34,000 and one made $3,000. That's a big swing. Gasoline has plunged to Think of this, over $4 a gallon, depending on where you are. In California, it's $7, $8 a gallon. While I was in Iowa, and they had $1.85, because I had it at $1.99 a gallon. And I was corrected by two farmers that said, I just bought my gasoline for $1.85. So, Chris, you have to be doing something right, you and Doug, right? But I don't want to give you too much confidence. You got to keep it going. We're drilling, I think I can say we're drilling more than at any time ever in the history. We're taking out more energy out of our land, but specifically, if you look at oil and gas, we've never been anywhere even close. Is that a correct statement?
That is correct. All-time records.
Yeah, great. It's a great job. Well, it's supply and demand, so that's going down rapidly. And you know, when energy goes down, everything else goes down. They tried to do their thing. It was a disaster. Then they ran back very late to the Trump policy, but they didn't do the Trump policy. They cut leases. They did everything that they could do, but they lost it, and they were very high. And we're now less than $2 in many areas, $2.30 a gallon average. Grocery prices, airfares, hotels, car payments, and rent prices are coming down very fast. And you don't hear the word affordability issued by the Democrats anymore. Now they're going into other things because they're getting beaten badly on affordability. Remember that when I was elected, I came into office, I inherited a total mess, starting with eggs, which were 4 times higher than they were just a year before. And Brooke got them down very quickly before Easter. They said they wanted me to buy plastic eggs for the egg hunt, at the very famous egg hunt at the White House. Sir, would you buy plastic eggs? And we buy a lot of, like 100,000 eggs. I said, we're not going to buy plastic eggs. And by the time we had the egg hunt, a few months later, we had the prices down pretty good. And now they're really low. Now they're at a very low level. So we really have, you don't hear the word affordability because we inherited very high prices, and we inherited the highest inflation in 48 years. I say the history of our country. I think it sounds almost the same. Actually, I think 48 years sounds actually worse for some reason. So I'll go with the 40, because the press corrected me. I said history, and they said, it's not a history, it's 48 years. I said, I'll accept that. And we had the highest inflation in 48 years. We have now as you saw yesterday with the Fed, I'm not a fan of his. He said that inflation essentially is not a factor. It's really been pretty amazing. I just put out a statement about his statements. I won't repeat them here because they're too angry. And thanks to our tax cuts, millions of Americans will soon receive record-setting tax refunds. You're going to get a lot of tax refunds, with the average refund expected to be over $1,000 higher than it has been at any time. So we're going to be getting some pretty good refunds, a lot of people. If congressional Democrats had their way, Americans would right now be facing the largest tax hike ever. You know, their proposal was to raise taxes very substantially. And our proposal, which is in the great big beautiful New Deal, it's a New Deal in its own way. It's a Republican version of the New Deal. Right behind you is a nice picture of FDR. This is a much better deal than the FDR deal. But we have the great big beautiful bill, and it's given tremendous tax cuts and a lot of other things. People are now finding out how good it is, and it's just kicked in as of January 1st, by the way. So we're really starting to see it. Even though it's a month, we're really starting to see it. The U.S. economy would be cratering if they had won this election. Our country would be in very bad shape. Would be maybe not much of a country anymore. I don't think it would be a country anymore. They were doing everything wrong, but they were going to give you the largest tax hike in history, and we're giving you the largest tax cut in history in the great big beautiful bill. In addition, I think it's very good. I think it's very important. You have no tax on overtime, no tax on tips, and no tax on Social Security, but you also have, you're getting this is the first time this ever happened. If you buy a car, you go out and borrow money, you get an interest deduction. You take the interest rate, the interest that you're paying on the loan, you're able to deduct it for income tax purposes. So that's a first ever, and I think it's going to be great for everybody, including the car companies. I was in Detroit 3 weeks ago. I went to the Ford factory, spoke to the General Motors people. It's all the same. They're doing better than they've ever done. The factory I went to was like a World War I, earlier than World War I factory, opened up. One of the oldest buildings, but one of the biggest. And Ford was getting ready to close it a couple of years ago, and then they saw that I was doing well, and it looked like I would have a good chance of winning. And they kept it going, barely going. And last week they announced, during my visit, they announced that they're going to round the clock production. They never thought it was. I said, did you ever think? I spoke with Bill Ford and the president of Ford. They were both there, and they said, we can't even believe it. We were going to close this building 2 years ago, and now it's going round the clock. They said, we cannot. I mean, they said, we wish it was twice the size, but they're now building additional plants in the United States, as is everybody else. You have AI building, but the car companies, I love the car companies, and you have them, they're all coming back. They're coming back from Mexico, they're coming back from Canada, they're coming back from Japan, and they're coming back from Germany, all over Europe. They're coming back, they're building here because they want to avoid the tariffs. They don't want to pay the 15%, in some cases 25% tariff. Could be a lot higher than that if it wasn't working. So because of that, they're all coming back. One statistic yesterday that Scott told me is that for the first time ever, tell them about the steel in Japan, that we are now making more steel. Go ahead, please.
So yesterday they reported for the first time in 26 years, the United States of America produced more steel than Japan. Wow. And that is entirely driven by your tariffs.
Amazing. Think of that. He obviously said that much better than I did because I got no applause, and I'm giving you home run after home run. He says one thing and everybody else. I should have saved that one for myself. No, but think of it. First time, and they read almost 30 years, but I guess it's 26, 27 years that we are now producing more steel than Japan. Japan being a big steel producer. Japan and other countries really took our steel production away from us. Now, if you think of this, 3-4 years ago, the steel companies were all closing up. We worked a fantastic deal with U.S. Steel. We saved U.S. Steel. And now it's all coming about. But and that's just the beginning. There are a lot of steel plants right now being built. So that's an amazing number. Nobody would have believed that. If you would have said that 3, 4, 5 years ago, people would have said, yeah, it's not a true fact, but so it has to be true because otherwise you question me on everything. I have to be extremely accurate. I don't exaggerate it. I don't want to exaggerate because you will call me. You don't call other people, but you would call me under my most favored nation spot, which I think is the most important thing, Bobby, of all what we've done, because we're bringing drug prices down by 80, 90%, depending on the way. You could say 5, 6, 7, 800%. Depends on the way you want to calculate it, right? But let's go the old-fashioned way. But drug prices for prescription drugs will be down 80, 90%, 75%, 68%. They've only gone up for years and years and years. They've only gone up, and now we're going to have essentially the most favored nation. We're going to have the most favored price in the whole world. Whatever the lowest price in the world is, that's what we're going to pay. And I don't want to go into a big deal, but nobody else could have gotten this but this administration. I'm being very nice when I say that. The cost of prescription drugs is coming down by a number that was never even thought of. This will have a huge impact on healthcare, by the way, because obviously drugs are a big part of healthcare, and it will help repair some of the Unaffordable Care Act's damage that they've done, because the Unaffordable Care Act, which is Obamacare, it's unaffordable. It's not affordable, and it's a disaster. And hopefully we will be paying money directly to the people instead of giving the insurance companies the money. They'll go into a healthcare savings account or whatever it is. But think of it. We pay the money, billions and billions, really trillions of dollars going to insurance companies. We want that money to go to the people. They buy their own health care. And it's so popular. The problem we have is the Democrats are owned by the insurance companies. They're literally owned lock, stock, and barrel by the insurance companies, and they hate it. But the people love it, including all Democrats. So I think perhaps be successful with it. But it was an idea I had. I read the papers, and I'm reading one of the stories about the insurance companies, how much money they're making, where they received, billions and billions of dollars for this stuff from the United States of America, and their stock has gone up by 1,400%. Think of it, 1,400. One went up 1,700%. Numbers went up. If you go up 1,000%, you're doing bad in that business, right? And it's all because of the money. Not all, but mostly because of the money the United States pays to the insurance companies. They say, this is big stuff. And I asked somebody, why don't we just pay the people directly? And they said, that's a good idea. It's funny, it's a very complicated business, but actually, it's not so complicated. And I went to Bobby and I went to Dr. Oz. I said, can I talk to you guys about this? Is this the kind of money the insurance companies get? Yes. Why don't we pay the people directly? And the primary answer was that the Democrats will never go along with it. But the people go along with it because I put it out. It went viral. Susie, I went all over the place. It became the biggest story. I just said it. And so I think we have a great situation if we can do it. But if you think most favored nation policy for drugs will bring your drug prices down at levels. Now if they're selling a pill for $10 in London and $130 in New York, the London price will go up to $20 and we'll go down to $20. So we'll go from 130 down to 20. And by the way, tariffs did it again because the drug company said, we'll do it begrudgingly, but they were okay. But we'll do it, but no nation's going to approve it because even if you raise the price by, like on a pill, $10 to $20, you're doubling the price of their prescription drugs. I said, no, they'll do it. And when I got them on the phone, I said, if you don't do it, we're going to charge you very substantial tariffs, more money than that's going to cost you. And they said, we'll do it. And before, I don't know that any other president even tried to do it. We can't find it. But if they did try, they wouldn't have gotten through the companies. They wouldn't have gotten through the company, and then they wouldn't have gotten through the country. I spoke with Macron. He was the first one. He was not at that time wearing sunglasses. And he said, no, Donald, I will not do this. I will not. I won't even consider. You're asking me to double the price. I said, you have no choice. You have to do it because you guys have been ripping us off. In other words, the whole world, we've been subsidizing the whole world on drug costs. That's why. They were $10 and we'd be at 130. As an example, there were many examples. I could give you examples even worse. He said, no, I will not do that. And I said, yes, you will. 100% you'll do it. He said, no, I won't do that, Donald. You're asking me to double the cost of our prescription. We will not do that. I said, look, you've been ripping us off now for decades. We're not going to do it anymore. You can do it under Biden and Obama and other people. You're not going to do it under us. We won't do it. I said, well, if you don't do it, I'm going to charge you a 25% tariff on all of your wine, champagne, and everything else you sell into the United States. He said, like I said, I will do it. And that was the end of the conversation, right? That was the end of the conversation. So now we have favored nations that everybody said would be impossible to get. And I then had the same conversation with 15 other countries. Every one of them agreed. After a short conference, they all said no. And then within a matter of seconds, they said, we would be very happy to do that. Thank you for asking in such a nice way. And it's a great achievement. I think it's going to be one of the best achievements we've had in this country in a long time. So we're going to be knocking drug prices down at levels never seen before. I want to thank the drug companies because once they agreed, they really did. They felt it was very unfair. One of them told me it's actually a relief to agree because this has been just a rough thing for me, to justify it. Because they couldn't justify it. I said, how come in London I can buy something for $10 and in New York I have to pay $130? And they go, well, it's research and development. I said, yeah, but you have research and development from them. Made in the same factory, made in everything. This is where my friend, who's very successful, I told you, a seriously overweight person, he takes the fat pill or the fat shot. And he was in London and he said, costs $87 there, costs $1,300 in New York. What's going on? He called me up. And, I knew that, but he put it in a very blunt way. I've known him a long time. He's a crude individual, but smart as hell, made a lot of money. But he just thought it was sort of ridiculous. He happened to be in London, and he got the shot, Ozempic, I think, or one of them. And I told him it wasn't working. For him, it didn't work. And he brought up a good point. It didn't work. I told him, he knows who I'm talking about. He's going crazy. He begs me not to mention.
He's not talking about me, ladies and gentlemen.
It's not our great vice president. No, but he begs me not to mention his name because he's become very famous without mentioning his name. And he is actually a very well-known business person. But he did make a point. But I knew the point very well. We were always paying far more than any other nation. We were subsidizing the world. Right now, there's no more of that. So we're going to be bringing the drug prices down at numbers never seen before. It's going to have a huge impact, positive impact on healthcare. So with that, we are going to ask a couple of people to say a few words. And we're not going to go through the whole table because the last time we had a press conference, it lasted for 3 hours. And some people said he closed his eyes. Look, it got pretty boring. In all fairness, I love these people. But there's a lot of people. It was a little bit on the boring side. But I didn't sleep. I just closed them because I wanted to get the hell out of here. Some of them, I didn't sleep, by the way. I don't sleep much, let me tell you. But, it's funny. Some of them got me in a blink. When you go like, and they took me at the closed segment of my cycle. And they said he's sleeping. And besides that, Marco, between these two guys, if I was sleeping, they'd be waking me up very fast. They'd be knocking me. Come on, you got to wake up, boss. But no, we've had great meetings. Look, we're the most transparent presidency by far, and I love going around the room. But we're going to pick a few people. I think I would like to ask Steve if he could just give us a brief description of how well we're doing in the Middle East, because we have peace in the Middle East now. There's a couple of little minor flames that we put out very easily. And very importantly, we got our last hostage back, which is incredible. Unfortunately, this was something that nobody said could be done. And I will tell you, Hamas was a big factor in getting all of the hostages back. We were not happy with them, and they had to bring them back, and they found the dead hostages, the bodies of hostages. And those parents wanted their sons back, I think in all cases sons. But they wanted their sons and their family. They wanted their sons back as much as the people that had living hostages that we got them back to. So we got the 20, but remember, we got hundreds back previous to that. But I always said getting those last 20 back is going to be very tough. And we got them back, and we got all of the bodies back also, which to those parents was just as important as getting back the son that was living. Steve, could you give us a little description, please?
Well, your policy of peace through strength, that's what delivered them home. Without that pressure, it never happens. We are in the second phase now. We've stood up for the first time, Mr. President, on your behalf, a technocratic, all Arab government. We've got the terrorists out of there, and they're going to demilitarize. They will, because they have no choice. So we expect that. Pardon me?
And now we want to get Hamas no guns, right?
Right. They're going to give it up. They're going to give up the AK-47s.
A lot of people said they'll never disarm. Looks like they're going to disarm. And they did help us with those bodies, getting them back.
And that family is so grateful to you. They called. I spoke to them. Jared spoke to them. It's an amazing story. He broke his shoulder, but he went out there because he didn't want his friends to fight alone. He would be alive today, but for that. He had no reason to go out with a broken shoulder, and he went out and fought them courageously. And died.
That's right. This is a great story, and the parents are great. They were the only ones who didn't, they came back pretty rapidly, actually, considering. And we had got some back initially with the initial group. After that, we had to get a lot. That's a tough job. That's a nasty job, too. Who would want that one? That's a nasty job. And between Israel and Hamas working together, if you can believe it, they got them back. And we got the last one back yesterday, and the parents are so happy. It's amazing, actually, how
We sent a message to the parents on your behalf, as you suggested, and they were so grateful.
I guess grateful to me is a much better word, because it's hard to be happy, but they were actually. I mean, they couldn't believe that they had their baby boy. The mother said, my baby boy back. It's a very terrible thing. Steve, Russia, Ukraine, we're making a lot of progress. Could you explain that?
The Ukrainians actually said that we've made more progress since Geneva than they've seen in the last 4 years of that conflict. So we had 5 Russian generals last Sunday in Abu Dhabi with Jared and Dan Driscoll, and we think we made a lot of progress. The talks will continue in about a week, but lots of good things happening between the counterparties discussing the land deal.
They're talking together.
We have a security protocol agreement that's largely finished, a prosperity agreement that's largely finished, and I think the people of Ukraine are now hopeful and expectant that we're going to deliver a peace deal sometime soon.
And because of the cold, extreme cold, they have the same that we do. I personally asked President Putin not to fire on Kiev and the cities and towns for a week during this. It's extraordinary. It's not just like cold, it's extraordinary cold, record-setting cold. Over there too, they're having the same. It's a big pile of bad weather, the worst. But it was they said they've never experienced cold like that. And I personally asked President Putin not to fire into Kiev and the various towns for a week, and he agreed to do that. And I have to tell you, it was very nice. A lot of people said, don't waste the coal, you're not going to get that. And he did it, and we're very happy that they did it.
That's correct.
Because on top of everything else, that's not what they need, is missiles coming into their towns and cities. So I just thought I should say it. I thought it was a very good thing. And Ukraine was almost, they didn't believe it, but they were very happy about it, because they are struggling badly.
I think it shows, Mr. President, how you provide an overarching sort of presence in these negotiations. The Ukrainians never thought it could happen. The Russians are doing things maybe that people wouldn't give them the credit for doing, and I think it always comes down to your indomitable spirit.
Mm-hmm.